Smart Means Business continues, and we are into a last the show where we are also going to discuss more in factors that are affecting issues that are affecting the economy of Uganda. But today we are mainly going to be at this particular moment we're going to be discussing about the coffee law in Uganda. In 2018, Uganda coffee bill was passed. That was in August 2020. That was in 2018. The coffee bill was actually addressed to Parliament, but then in 2020 it was finally passed into a law. Now, Parliament passed the National Coffee Bill 2018 that provides the registration of coffee farmers by the Uganda Coffee Development Authority. And the registration of the farmers will entail capturing details of the size of land, number of coffee trees, particulars of the farmer, coffee buyers, sellers, and nursery bed operators. Now, Parliament, however, rejected a clause to do a re-register of the coffee farmers who failed to meet the standards set by government. And in addition, a 2-year jail term for a farmer who failed to take good care of their coffee plantation was also rejected by the members. And joining me to discuss more of the coffee bill in Uganda, that is the coffee law rather in Uganda. It is no longer a bill, meanwhile. That is a gentleman from the Uganda Coffee Development Authority who joins us via Zoom to actually take us through the issue. And we are mainly discussing an insight into the coffee law of Uganda and what are those key highlights that we have to actually address. And joining me, I have a gentleman joining me on Zoom. You're most welcome, sir, and thank you for joining us.
Hey. Thank you very much for hosting me. Apollo Sego is my name, Executive Director at CHURAD.
Well, thank you for joining us on Smart 24. This is Smart Means Business. All right, now we are heading into a discussion of an insight into the coffee law. I want to look at the highlights of the coffee law. Now, the Uganda Coffee Development Authority is actually there to regulate all on and off farm activities in the coffee value chain. But I would want you to help us understand the law. What is it made of before we even get into our discussion?
Thank you very much again. My name is Apollo Segawa, Executive Director at CHURAD. I am not from UCDA, so I have a particular focus on validation and young people's involvement in the coffee value chain. So I may not go too far to the full detail of the law, but I'm very much focused on how it impacts our young people and their involvement in the coffee value chain. A few issues that are of crucial importance to our young entrepreneurs who are innovating around coffee. The issues around licensing. At CHURAD, we host over 40 youth-owned coffee brands. This is coffee that's ready for consumption. We have a facility where these young people produce coffee, pack it, and trade it locally and internationally. We also support young people to set up coffee shops where they can trade and make money from coffee. Of course, we have a backward linkage to the farmers, so issues around the production affect them. But our main concern is how does it affect a young person who wants to get involved in coffee? And these are the issues that are coming out of the law. We see some serious repercussions resulting from the licenses required for a young person to run a coffee shop. We already have a lot of overheads for these young people, from rent to KCC fees, municipal rates, and all those costs that go with running such a business. Adding on a license from UCDA to ensure this young person runs a coffee shop is an added burden that I don't think that our young people are ready to handle. So for me, that's a pertinent issue, and I hope that any charges related to that will be very minimal or can be waived for our young people because they need jobs, and part of where they need to make this get jobs started is along the coffee value chain. So we cannot bring any impediment that can prevent them from actually accessing and making money from coffee. Secondly, roasting, the key issue that the validation to coffee that we handle. Yes, we have fees attached to roasting and permits attached to that. We still believe such permits, if at all, should be waived for young people because, again, it's an added disincentive for them to get started. They don't have capital and very little is available for them to use. So adding on another burden of permits from trying to roast coffee to trying to sell it in a coffee shop or trying to export it is an added burden they can hardly handle. So this is a pertinent issue at the apex level of the value chain where the coffee needs to meet the cap. And that is where most jobs that our young people are involved in. And we need to protect them. We should not come up with any impediment that can reduce their desire to make money from coffee. A few other issues in the law as far as the primary production is concerned. I heard from the seminar that we had yesterday with UCDA and other coffee players that there won't actually be a need for a license for someone to farm coffee. So that's a welcome development. But something again that needs to be pointed out is how is that data going to be used? If you register the coffee farmers, that is well and good. It is actually very important for planning purposes because UCDA needs to know who are they planning for? Who is the farmer that they need to give inputs? How do they avail agronomic support to which farmer in which district? So it's very important. But the use of that data needs to be adequately protected because that data in the wrong hands, or if it's subjected to wrong policies, it can really derail the entire coffee value chain development. So that's another pertinent issue that is coming out of this law. But by and large, we as Churad been part of the whole process leading to this law. We work with New Cafe, and we've been our board member, Honorable Sendaula, and New Cafe, and a lot of other coffee players have been instrumental in getting this law going. It is important that we have this law, but we need to be looking at those aspects that may create some problems, and we need to handle them very carefully. Thank you very much.
This perspective, take me through the registration. You've actually been mentioning about registration of these particular coffee farmers, but my viewer out there would want to understand, and this local farmer, what is needed in the registration process, and who is supposed to monitor the registration?
As the law stands now, these are all components that have to be managed by UCDA. But the way it's going to actually get done is still a process in the making. So how it's actually going to happen is still not very clear in the law. All we know is UCDA will manage this process, but using whom and how is still a question that needs to be answered. Proposals are in place to tell UCDA to work with partners like Churad, partners like New Cafe, partners like the other coffee organizations to help in this registration. The proposals have also been made to work with a parish development model to have that involved in the registration. So the detail of that registration and how it will happen are yet to be captured. All I can say is it will capture both large and small scale farmers. It will capture details around how many trees they have, their location, and how large their acreage of coffee they possess. So that is very clear. But the actual registration activity, other than knowing that it will be managed by UCDA, we don't have that clarity yet.
Stakeholders in the coffee sector, how many farmers have you reached out to see that you can actually help in the exportation of coffee? Because we've actually seen that we're now having a number of foreign markets, with the US market actually also tapping into the sector of coffee in Uganda. So if you're to look into, you are the stakeholders in this coffee market, how many farmers have you actually engaged in these activities?
Probably to correct you a bit. Exporters, the farmers in cooperative or producer groups that are actually exporting, not that many, the farmer groups doing that. And us as an organization, like I said, CHURAD, we are not involved in supporting or working with the primary producer to export. We primarily work with young people, SMEs, to value add and export. That's where we handle the value chain at CHURAD. So I can say we have over 40 brands that are produced and made at our processing facility in Kavanyuru. This includes brands like Lamarck, Gorilla Highland Coffee, Sippy Coffee, and a host of other coffee brands that are made and packed at CHURAD. So over 40 brands are being produced and made at our facility. And out of those, about 10 are exported across the globe. We have Gorilla Highland Coffee, for example, going as far out as Japan, Australia, and the US. We have Lamarck going to UK and Italy. So as an organization, we work with about 40 SMEs and 10 of which are exporting. And we are trying slowly to get the producer groups and cooperatives to actually add value to what they produce so that they don't export green bean. Everybody traditionally exports green bean where we get very little value. But we know now the drive is to export value-added coffee. So we are working with groups like Masaka Coffee to try and add value to their coffee and export it as a producer, as a primary producer. So we are slowly trying to get the cooperatives not to sell green bean, but actually sell a value-added product. So our count as an organization is the SME and enterprise and cooperatives that are actually exporting rather than the individual farmers under these groupings. That is probably a niche for New Cafe and other organizations that are involved in that part of the value chain. Our role at CHURAD is to encourage value addition and the export of a value-added product. Thank you.
Holistic view of the state of coffee in Uganda as an agricultural sector. Where are we now in regards to the economic standing?
Coffee is the most important crop in the country. That cannot be overemphasized. Coffee, growing up and seeing household with coffee, you could always tell the difference on who has coffee and who doesn't have. Families with coffee will never have children out of school. Most of us were in the center of the country, were educated with money from coffee. So all families that have coffee have always had a higher degree, a higher level of living than those without coffee. So the economic value of the crop cannot be overemphasized. Right now, I can say we are growing our exports exponentially. We almost have a 20% increment per month on the number of bags that are exported. So the importance of coffee can only get stronger. We believe in the next 5 years, looking at the projections, we could be getting close to over 10 million bags annually. And we'll be on course to meet our 20 million bags probably before 2030. So the value that the farmer is getting from coffee is growing and is gaining even more importance than before. We have new areas that are new regions in the country that are starting to grow coffee. We are starting to have coffee in the northern part of the country. We are starting to grow coffee in the west of the country where it was predominantly on cattle. So the value of coffee now is even more important than it was before because consumption globally is growing and Uganda is continually getting a big chunk of that market. What we need to focus on is to move from exporting green bean to actually exporting a value-added product. For example, a green bean on average could say 6,000 kilo with Arabicas going to 9,000, 10,000. But A value-added coffee, a kilo goes to beyond 30,000. So the income triples if you value add. So we need to move away from exporting green bean to try to export a value-added product and put all the incentives in place to ensure that our young people, to ensure that our cooperatives actually start looking at this as the most viable option to further increase the incomes they're getting. If they can only value add, if we can only value add 20% of our crop before exporting it, our incomes can triple. Because, like I said, the value moves from 1 shilling to 3 shillings just by the mere act of value adding that coffee before export. So that's where I see us, or that's where I want us to have emphasis, from primary production to value addition and trading a value added product. Thank you.
I want you to give your final assessment and your last remarks to the viewers who have been with us in Smart Means Business.
Yes, thank you very much again. The coffee law is good, but it's not the end of the journey. It should just be the beginning. The implementation of this law is critical. How are you going to handle those farmers before you actually give them the penalty, before you take them to prison? How much support is in place to ensure they do the right thing? How much sensitization to ensure that the farmer knows what is good for them as far as the law is concerned before you enact and implement those penalties? How sensitized are our local governments in ensuring that they handle our farmers fairly? Because if a farmer doesn't know what to do and you catch them doing something wrong, the first thing before arresting them is to sensitize them and tell them what is correct. So for me, I see the law as the start. Then we should have a very good implementation schedule for it, and we should go ahead and sensitize the farmer about the law. That is critical. Secondly, the issues around value addition and trade in coffee. We need to put incentives in place to ensure that we get our young people into this coffee value chain. How are we going to do that? We need to ensure that these fees that are charged under the law, the license fees, a portion of that goes into innovations and development and support to those entrepreneurs who want to get into the coffee value chain. So the money from fees should not only just go and be spent into supporting UCDA or supporting other government programs. A portion of it, like we do for tourism, a portion of that money should get back into supporting value addition activities, into supporting farmers, into supporting our young people to ensure they can get full value from their crop. As Churat, we are always happy and ready to work with all partners in this activity, as our core role is to ensure that our farmers and our young people get involved in the coffee value chain. We really hope that incentives and funds are put in place to ensure that happens. Thank you very much.
Very much as well for honoring our invitation and sharing your time with us, Mr. Apollo from 2.
Thank you very much, and thank you for hosting me.
With us since we started off with Smart Means Business. There is a job here available in just 1 minute. It is coming in from Liquid Telecom, Liquid Intelligent. Yes, that is Liquid Intelligent Telecom, and they're in search of a personal assistant to the CEO. So the Liquid Intelligent Technologies based in Kampala, and they're looking for a personal assistant to the CEO. You should have a minimum qualification of a bachelor's experience level of 2 years. That is an entry level of experience. Your key responsibilities, you'll be having day-to-day management of incoming and outgoing communication, as well as submitting reports and prepares summary as well in that particular aspect. Those are some of the job opportunities that are available as well for you to actually go and get it for yourself. In the meanwhile, Smart Means Business will definitely be saying goodbye.